Hi! We are live, but not live because we're recording this, and this is the first pilot episode of Stream of Thoughts. I am not Keith, and I am here with my co-host.
Hello, I'm Xhoreya, and I am Xhoreya, yes.
Yes.
Hi.
I call them the TV Kiwi just because,
uh,
that's how I...
that should have been my YouTube channel name.
Yeah, I mean that's how that's like you are the this is Stream of Thoughts. This is a TV streaming service podcast where we review, for the most part it looks like we're going to be reviewing the She-Hulk series right now, but there could be other series we could be reviewing and other things like that, but right now we're going to be focusing on She-Hulk. And Xhoreya's you're the first person I genuinely thought of when I was thinking about this. And
Oh, thank you.
well, because like our links will be everything that we do, like our channels, because we both do YouTube videos. Xhoreya, you do video essays, right?
Yes, yeah, I do. So I do a lot of, they're sort of like hybrid retrospective slash video essays. They're not like, I don't super categorize them, but yeah, I do a lot of retrospectives. I have done, so I started doing, I did a retrospective of the 1977 Hulk TV series, the one starring Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno. So I do consider myself quite a fan of like the Hulk in general. I haven't read a lot of the comics, but I have like seen the original show. I've seen like all the live action adaptations, like that kind of thing. So yeah, I started kind of, that was my first sort of major retrospective, and then that randomly kind of took off. So I was like, well, cool. So I'm going to do some more of these, and so I've been reviewing and doing retrospectives of a lot of like retro TV and also like superhero media, which sort of like ties in together. And then, yeah, on the side, I do a little bit of like random video essays here and there that are a little more like specific about like specific themes and things. So, yeah, that's my my long rambly answer about what I do.
But that was the thing. Like when it was your Hulk retrospective. I like a lot. I like all your retrospectives. That's not even me like
Thank
humble
you.
bragging you. I just really enjoy them. It's always fun.
Thank you.
It's always fun. It's
Oh,
You're really in depth. You do your research, and they're like long and not in a bad way. They're just long, and like I think that takes a lot. Like as a person who
yeah,
ruse making making over
yeah,
20-minute long videos, because my fear is like I don't want to collect this footage, but I know I'm gonna have to use this. But like yeah, no, they're very informative too. Like you get in the nitty gritty, and I think definitely a reason why I was like, hey, I want to do this thing. I don't know how it's gonna be like, but I know people that I would like, and you were number one, and the goal is also maybe have other people come into besides just us, and just do an open conversation on this, because really honestly for me the reason I thought of doing this podcast now is because of She-Hulk, and it's because of I think you know this about me. I also do video essays, but mine are a mixed bag. I like
oh, it's great.
just,
I really
it's like
like your video essays.
thank you. It's I do a lot of Asians in media because I think that's really important. That's always I'm Asian American. That's super important to me. But then a lot of them,
Hmm.
I'm just very fascinated about how media has evolved, and what
Hmm.
we can do better, or what has changed. And so the reason I wanted to do this is I have been oddly fascinated by the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I don't know if it's good or bad. I
Hmm.
was a huge fan when I was a kid, when I was in high school. And it's not that I've dropped off. It's just that I don't go out of my way anymore to watch big things in the Marvel universe,
I
right?
get that.
But
Yeah, I'm the same. I feel like, sorry, I was just gonna say, yeah, I feel like I'm exactly the same. Yeah.
and I understand that, and the thing that really got me is just obviously for me, not to uh pimp another Kiwi up, but I really liked Taika Waititi's Thor Ragnarok. That's like my favorite Marvel movie. And then like I am probably the weirdo that likes Love and Thunder, and I like think I know what he was trying to do with that movie, but like it's my interpretation. But the reason I chose wanted to talk about She-Hulk is when Miss Marvel came out, there was a little bit of backlash for like weird, for like weird bad hot takes on it. Where,
a lot of bad faith criticism.
Yeah, and that is my the first episode of we're gonna get into it. We're gonna talk about She-Hulk, but the reason I chose She-Hulk, excuse me, is because I feel like the first episode, and I think I said this, it's hard to cipher between like legitimate criticisms of the show and then just really sexist, weird remarks.
Yeah, no, I get that, and it's like, yeah, absolutely. Because I watched Ms. Marvel, and I was like, I thought it was fun. I enjoyed it. I mean, I think it was obviously geared towards a younger demographic, but I don't think that's a negative. Like, especially with this expansive universe, I think that there should be some content geared towards the younger demographic because they're going to be watching these things anyway, and especially as some people have, there's always been a vocal subset of people pushing for like R18 movies and stuff like that. And I'm like, I think that's not a problem to have something that is more geared towards younger viewers. But yeah, I found it was fun. I enjoyed it. I didn't, it wasn't necessarily my favorite, but I enjoyed it a lot and I had a good time with it. And then you look at like a lot of the reviews and stuff, and it's all the kind of, as soon as I see woke in someone's review, like the word woke used in a review, it just immediately makes me go, oh, this is one of those. Like,
yeah, it turns me off on like not the media, but just as like using like, I know like testing the waters here, but there really is just a bunch of like I just don't like I've come to this realization that like there's a weird thing going on with Marvel, is that like it's expanding but not in a way that I think most people want. And I say this only because of Love and Thunder's discourse, which here nor there about that, but like there's something to be said about like someone's argument is Marvel isn't being coherent with their movies and TV, which an argument can be made. Marvel comics weren't like that either, though, because like while they were, they're still printing Spider-Man, they had like Punisher Max and stuff like this going on, like really like edgy, dark stuff going on. So an argument can be made that like it's just splitting into more. The universe itself is expansive, and I also don't think all of it has to be together, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
I get you, yeah. It gets to a point where you get so tangled up and worried about continuity that you're actually like stifling the amount of stories and the type of stories that you can tell.
And that's where I feel like these Disney, like the first Disney Plus shows, I feel like really suffer. The first WandaVision, I feel like suffered from that because like I feel like at the end they're like, okay, we got to speed this up. This is how, like, you know what I mean? But like as these shows go, like Miss Marvel, not my favorite show, but like also like you said, I'm not a teenage girl, or I'm not a teenager, and so like I don't relate to that as much. But it had a personality and it was fun, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like I had a good time with it, and you could see that it had an intention, it had a personality. These were all like very intentional choices that were being made, and I think that it was successful with what it was trying to do. It's just like, me as like an adult, I'm not necessarily connecting with all of that, but at the same time, like I didn't think it was bad at all. Like I still enjoyed it enough.
Yeah, well, because it's like like Moon Knight. I think Moon Knight is good until the last episode, but I also complain about, I don't think every Marvel thing needs a giant CGI fight, but apparently they do.
Yeah.
And
I think Moon Knight should have been twice as long.
Twice as long, and it should have been
and
held back. Like, you know what I mean? Like, don't get me wrong, tall gator lady fighting a giant Owl Man, cool, but like bring it back. Bring it like the avatars are here for a reason because they can't like it's one of those things. It's a nitpick.
Yeah,
But that does
yeah, but
lead
that's the thing. I think like, sorry.
No, go on, dude.
I was just gonna say, yeah, just to like qualify my thought about it being twice as long. Like the reason for that is I found a lot of the like the Disney Plus Marvel ones they've obviously been really short, and I think a lot of them have felt rushed, if not entirely through, then at least in certain points.
Yeah.
Like for me, Moon Knight felt rushed like the entire way through, and that was my biggest issue with it. Like because you have that whole sort of pseudo trial scene going on inside the pyramid in I think episode 3, which sort of comes and goes and doesn't really do anything and has no real relevance besides like introducing the gods. And that could have been a whole episode on its own if it had like actual stakes and actual like narrative meaning and stuff like that. You know, just things like that. It was so rushed, and like they never even vocalized that, you know, Mark has DID on screen. There's just a lot of things that like if it was allowed to breathe, if it was given more time, they could have really hit those points and like made it feel a lot less rushed. But yeah, that's neither here nor there. But I just really wanted to talk about it.
This is why I really enjoy She-Hulk because it's 9 episodes long, so it's 3 episodes more. But a caveat and argument can be made. It is 20. They're 22 minutes.
Yeah, they're quite short, and we always have to remember as well that each Marvel Disney Plus show has like 6 minutes of credits on them.
Yeah. So, but like brings me into She-Hulk is that this is. I don't think this is gonna be my favorite Marvel thing from Phase whatever this is, because like right now right now it's still Shang-Chi. Like I know people are like Spider-Man No Way Home. Mine is just Shang-Chi. That obviously has like emotional meaning towards me, but this is one where I really like this show, but I also see its flaws, and that's how I know I like the show, because I'm like I like it, but I know parts of it are not for me, and that leads
I agree.
That does lead me into like the reason I wanted to talk about She-Hulk is again that bad faith criticism, and I liked episode 1 a lot. And I think episode 1 really, it gets the ball running. That's my favorite thing about episode 1 is it's just like, hey, you know why you're here. Fourth wall break right away. We're going to tell you what happens. And that to me is just like, it is, with that small thing, it sets up its personality. Whether you like that or not, that is a matter of opinion. But it lets you know what the show is about, right? And I think that to me, it's like, hey, this is going to be goofy. This is going to be quirky. Is it going to have quips? 100%. Do they make me cringe sometimes? Yeah, but like, that's Marvel. Marvel's always going to have quips. I'm not going to be able to control that. But like, her relationship with Bruce is really fun in the first episode. And I think that's really the heart of like, to understand, I think what people are not understanding is that when She-Hulk appears, I guess we should say that the first episode is basically Jen's origin story. And so,
I have to say, the actual like origin for her like getting her powers, I know it's based in the comics, even though the actual like circumstances are different, but she gets Bruce's blood in her system one way or another. And I don't know, I felt like it was a little lame because it happened very quickly and it's just like, this is happening. But at the same time, I appreciated that we at least had more time like to spend with her after the fact as well. So I don't know. Like
the one thing that this really did is I went back and watched I have HBO Max, and Incredible Hulk is the only movie that is not on Disney Plus for like the Phase 1 of Marvel. And so I rewatched it. I like that movie. I know like it was panned, and I think I panned it when I was younger. Like, oh, this is not good. I like it. Yeah. But they clearly set up that whatever Bruce's blood touches, even a small scrape will like hurt you. This is true. Yes. The context of Stan Lee. Yeah. Yep. And then the leader, drips of his blood go into his brain, and because he had a cut in his, he had a wound. So it's like they set up that this is an actual thing that happens, and I think that like it's a deep
Fair
cut.
enough. Yeah, I did forget that.
It is a deep. That's the thing. Like there's a lot of weird deep cuts that you don't
Mm.
think about, and the only reason I thought about it, especially in episode 2, uh, we'll get to that one, but like for episode 1, there's a lot of things where I think a lot of the mixed, one of the biggest mix of bad faith criticism and like pop a little bit legitimate criticism is that Jen starts out real good, right?
Yeah.
Like everyone is like already screaming Hulk, She-Hulk, Mary Sue, right?
Mm.
The bad faith criticism in that definitely comes from, I can see where it's just like she doesn't seem interesting because she already has it all together, right? That's what people are implying, because she can control the Hulk, the She-Hulk inside her and things like that. I can understand that as a criticism, but what the problem then becomes is that there were so many like weird dudes being like because Bruce was literally like, I've mansplained numerous times to people when I was younger, and I feel very, very bad about it now. But Bruce definitely was like being like, "Yo, this is what's gonna happen. You can't, like, you have to listen to me." And she's just trying. She says it very nicely too. She like, people make it sound like she was being a bitch. She wasn't. She's like, "Hey,
No.
I do this all the time, man. Like, I have to control my anger all the time." She's a professional. She's a lawyer. Yeah, that shit's
Yeah.
scary. Like, I don't know if you've ever like read people's things about like being like a woman in power in like a high class job. It's terrifying. And like, she also
Well,
makes
yeah, and
it.
I can even tell.
No, go on.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
I can even tell you, as someone who's like worked in not a law profession, but I once had a reception slash admin job in an accounting firm, and I can tell you that they have or they can have a similar like work culture, in the sense of being generally, more conservative leaning, quite formal, like that kind of thing. It's a very similar kind of space in some cases, depending on obviously where you work. And yeah, I mean, just being in those kinds of professions, even not being an actual lawyer, but just being around like, men in power and being in that kind of position and stuff, I think a lot of the like sexism that I personally experienced, just for me kind of came from a lot of like, either young kind of douchey guys like we do see in She-Hulk, although they're quite exaggerated there, but we, a lot of those kinds of people, but then also like older guys who are just so used to, working in a space that didn't have a lot of, non-men in it. Just, yeah, so it is something that is, you kind of do have to navigate a lot in that kind of work culture, especially for, more formal, more generally conservative leaning type positions. Yeah, so it's a huge generalization, and not exactly the same thing, but it does give me like some vague idea of how it would be to be in that sort of office environment. So yeah, and even beyond that, of course, like she just
Yeah,
talks about
she talks about just being a
like her
woman in
general
general.
experiences. Exactly. Yeah, like it's obviously, and I think a lot of the bad faith criticisms are about like how, oh well, she's perfect because she's a woman and Marvel has an agenda and blah blah blah. And I think really a lot of it a makes sense in the context of her lived experiences, and they do sort of explain that. But B also, like, a lot of the new heroes that are sort of being introduced now are starting out at like a more solid place with their powers already. Like
Because
we're getting
the
introduced to
universe
people
is
like,
like built in already. Like, we know
yeah,
that there are people with powers. We don't need like, wow, there's powers. Why? These are
yeah.
people.
Well, that's the thing.
Their
And like She-Hulk
legacies.
has always been, yeah, exactly. And She-Hulk has always been more articulate than
Hmm.
regular Hulk. And this has always been, this is not new. This is not something they've made up for the show. And yeah, it's just one of those things. Like even if she has to, figure things out, I don't think that's like they're obviously going for some kind of arc here because she's a reluctant hero. She doesn't want to be.
Well,
She-Hulk, not really. And there's
that
still a lot of her that like is fighting against that, and like that is her arc. You know, you
yeah,
can
and
be an imperfect person in multiple ways. It can be, in this case, you know, arguably a personality flaw as opposed to, you know, an actual the struggle with the powers themselves. But it's more struggle with what the powers represent and her place in society with those powers. You know,
she doesn't want to be a
so I
pariah.
don't
That's
think,
like the biggest
yeah,
thing you pick up in episode 2 is that like there is like episode 1, I feel like it's supposed to introduce you to who Jennifer Walters is, right? I don't think it's there
mm-hmm,
to introduce, like, it's, she clearly says it, hey, this is the origin. And that's all, the
yeah,
bulk of that episode is the origin, right? And so,
yeah,
like, what they did here was super smart because one thing that I will give She-Hulk is they have a beginning, even though it's an overarching story. It's kind of how I feel about the Sandman. Sorry, I'm just gonna like I like the Sandman, but like there's an overarching story, yes, but each episode has an act 1, act 2, and act 3, or like an A
it's
plot
quite,
and a B
yeah,
plot.
it's quite episodic.
It is very episodic with while also having an overarching story, and I think that's
Mm,
the problem that all the other Marvel shows have had, in my personal opinion, is because they've all felt like TV long movies, right?
mm,
That's the problem for me. It's just that like you get TV, but it's they're still trying to make it feel like a movie. This is like
mm.
we know it is a TV show. We know the CGI. I'm just gonna say this now. Sorry, this is the only time I say it. I don't give a shit how bad the CGI is. This is a comic book
Mm,
movie. I don't
yeah, I will
understand people's
qualify that just
dislike.
to say, yeah.
Go,
I mean, I think people are being overly harsh on it, but also like I can understand that like the animators are sort of, it's tough
yeah,
for them because look, I mean, at the end of the day, they're animating a woman, and generally feminine faces are softer and have rounder features, and you know all of these things, less textured as well. And these, you know, generally, and like all of these things, obviously, are going to make it look a little less real when it's animated, right? Because the more texture something has, generally, the more like in the
mm,
world it feels. And so,
yeah.
like you see Hulk, and he's obviously got like a bit of stubble, and he's got like blah blah blah, you know, lines. I mean, he's an older guy as well, so like there's more texture going on in his face.
Well,
So like I think a lot of that is why he looks a little more in the world than she does. But
also
you
they've
know, there's
had
only so much
years
you can really
working
do.
on him too. Like that's the thing.
Exactly.
They've had
Yeah.
Hulk model for like a good decade. So she's new,
Yeah.
and like
Exactly.
I just I get it. I can understand bad CGI hot takes for certain things, right? But like
Mm.
it's a TV show. It's also a comic book
Yeah.
movie, and like this is probably my douchebag hot take. What do you expect? Like I'm sorry. Like I just that is my like I'm a d bag, but I'm like that's a stupid reason to be mad at this show. The CGI bad.
Yeah.
It's like
I get it. I mean, I think it's worth criticizing to an extent, but I don't
yeah,
think it's a hill
oh,
worth dying.
100%. I
Yeah.
think there is like it does like I'm not saying it doesn't look jarring and like that I'm
Mm.
not being like you guys are being babies, but like also it's a 6'7" tall green woman and like there's a boy who shoots webs from his hands. Like come on, like I'm I'm an old curmudgeon apparently. I'm just like you can't have good
Yeah.
CG. No, it's just like but like the like
Back in my day, we had Hulk 2003. He was fighting, you know, CGI dogs.
you can't tell
Get off my
Ang
lawn.
Lee had no idea what depth perception was because Hulk was like the size of a mountain and then
Yeah.
smaller than a tank. But like the
Keep
thing that
changing
like
size. Yeah.
yeah, that was so crazy. I want to get we gotta watch that sometime. But no,
We've gone
but
on
like
a tangent.
sorry, but like no, like with episode 1, I think it's a solid episode. My only complaint really is the Titania fight, and I feel like an argument can be not an argument. I feel like what they're going to do because it feels episodic is that Jennifer Walters will either have to take on the Titania case that like no she can't because she was part of it, or someone in the superhero division will have to take on the Titania case. You know how she like broke into the court, and you're gonna
Yes.
see
Yeah.
more what happened with that fight because I do my dislike for that is that that fight felt rushed. It felt like it cut.
Yeah.
There was a lot of weird cuts, right? And I think they're saving that for a future episode.
Yeah, I get that, but it does feel like it sort of like comes a bit out of nowhere, and then the next
Yeah,
episode it's not even mentioned, and you're like, oh, all
exactly.
right, like. But yeah, I think to take this back a little, just yeah, the fact that this is episodic, I think it's going to be a bit of a blessing and a curse depending on how it goes, because you get bits like that where it's like, oh, it's not mentioned in the next episode, so that's a bit, there are overarching threads carrying through, of course, but then you lose track of things like that, and then it might just come up later. And I think part of like the fact that it is more episodic than previous Disney Plus Marvel shows, like on one hand, I think kind of makes it feel a little fluffier and a little lower stakes, which can be a good and a bad thing. Like I think it's generally good because it's refreshing to like not have, as you say, like these extra long movies essentially, and kind of just we're getting more of a slice of life type thing going on, which
Yeah,
is quite interesting. On the other hand, I can see why a lot of people who would be more expectant of, the more serialized things wouldn't appreciate that. I think something I have liked about the show is sort of the peeking into like how things are in this world on a smaller scale, like with people just sort of like, oh yeah, that person has powers, and then there's this person from like New Asgard later on, and they're like, we kind of are getting to see a little bit more of the inner workings of things in some cases, and I kind of like that. So yeah, I don't really know what my point is. I think my point is just that like I don't mind the fluffiness of it, even though I think a lot of people like are against that. I think it's nice to have different formats, different styles, different you know structures of shows in the MCU, because
and
like one of the main criticisms a lot of people have for the franchise in general is that
it's
it's
very
quite like
samey.
homogenous at this point.
It is
Yeah,
very homogenous.
everything's
Like
quite
it's there's
yeah,
a there's a act one, act two, and then big fight for no reason.
yeah, and the quips and everything, and it's like at the very least like it's trying something different, so I can
Hmm.
appreciate it for that.
And that was my thing. Like the gripes that I had with episode one are very minuscule. Like it's just
Yeah,
that
I think
like
that's probably my favorite so far, to be honest.
yeah, it's the comedy. Like I just like sometimes the comedy just does not hit with me. Like
No, yeah.
again, it's kind of like it's like people really like. I don't like New Girl that much, but like that's the kind of comedy like because it's like oh it's like Ally McBeal. I'm like I remember I was like okay I'm gonna watch one episode of Ally McBeal, but I'm not gonna watch the first episode because the first episode's not good. And then I watched Ally McBeal. I'm like I don't like Ally McBeal, and so like
Yeah.
because I'm just like you know what. Also, this is going to be another thing where it is about people's like there is or another thing where bad faith criticism comes in. Sorry, this is like me just hi. This is us just saying bad faith criticism bad, but like there's like it's humor,
Okay. Yeah.
right? It's humor where it's
Mm.
just that like sometimes the jokes don't land. It's not because she's a woman.
Yeah,
It's
I
just
mean,
they just don't
that's the thing.
land.
I think it's fair. Yeah, it's fair enough to not find the jokes funny. Like, I
Yeah,
definitely don't think they're all funny.
I
Like,
don't.
just to call out a specific example, there was one in episode 3, just to jump ahead, where she's breaking the fourth wall because the A and B plot come together, and she just says, "Oh, A and B plot have come together. Nice." And it's like, oh, yeah, I mean, you referenced the thing that's happening, but it's not really. There's not a
Yeah,
punchline. You just said what's
there
happening.
there
Like
is
so.
referential
It's not all,
stuff that is like real
but
solid. Like episode
hmm,
3 has one we'll get into, but like I guess
yeah.
do you want to do final thoughts on episode 1? Because like I give it an
Yeah,
8.
sort of like
My final thought is
yeah.
I give it an 8.
I think I tend not to want to put
Give a
numbers to my thoughts. I think,
that is
but
understandable. Yeah, that you
yeah,
know what that
but
is
I
understandable.
would
But I'm sorry, I'm just warm on it. I
yeah.
liked it. It was fun.
I liked it. I think so far it's my favorite of the 3 that I've watched, and I think because while there was a lot of time on like exposition and setting it up, obviously it was the origin story. I liked you know her relationship with Bruce. Obviously that wasn't set up beforehand, but that's not really this show's fault. considering that like it just sort of had to run with that, I think it did a decent job of making them feel like they are related, like especially the way they talk to each other. And yeah, they seem more like siblings, and I don't think that's a problem because we've never really gotten into Bruce's past, his history, his family within the MCU. But if it is comic accurate or at least close to that, then we can imagine he's sort of like on his own and probably spent more time like with Jen and her family and stuff. So yeah, I liked their relationship. I liked how that was set up, and I thought it was fun. Not everything landed, but I thought the fourth wall breaking was entertaining in this episode. You know, generally because it was sort of like it was new, not only for us but for them as well. So she was sort of like, "Oh, this is happening. What?" And just like getting into it straight away. So yeah, I quite liked it, and I thought like it felt like okay, we're having this origin. They're skipping through, you know, her struggling with the powers, but at the end of the day, you know, Bruce himself hasn't really struggled that much with his powers in the MCU. Like his, this is a whole other tangent, but you know, Marvel has sort of skipped over a lot of development for the Hulk and just sort of
Yeah.
gotten us to where he is quite quickly. So I don't think they are in general that interested in that story,
Well,
all things considered. So
I think
it's
another
not
thing.
really a She-Hulk thing; it's a general Hulk thing in the MCU.
Yeah, well, the thing that like one of the most annoying things that went real fucking viral, sorry, real viral is this guy posted this like She-Hulk. Being a woman is so hard, you don't know it. And then it's like, well, the Hulk had to face military and all this. I'm like, yes, he did. Post being turned into the Hulk.
Yeah,
It is
like
post
that's
being
exactly
turned
the
into
thing.
the Hulk.
Yeah, like
And
exactly, and she's already like. First of all, you know, her powers obviously came from sort of they're like diluted in the sense that it sort of came from his blood. It wasn't like the direct, you know, gamma,
gamma radiation.
exposure and stuff like that. Yeah, and also, you know, obviously we've already talked about like how it justifies her control of the powers and stuff like that. But again, like you know, and outside of the rights issues of why we didn't get further, you know, Hulk movies, even with the Hulk appearances that we had in the movies that he was in, you know, his development was pretty fast forwarded. I mean, we had
Yeah, he had his
one
shit
movie, which
controlled.
was Incredible Hulk. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. We had Incredible Hulk, one movie, and then we had The Avengers, which was the next movie that he was in. And he already said at the end of that, I'm always angry, I have control of my powers. That's only in the second film, right? And it's like,
But
that
then they
happened
mire
really
it, but they
quick.
do push it
I'm
back
like,
though in Age of Ultron.
a
You
little.
know what I mean? Which is kind of like, well, that's kind of
Yeah,
a weenie thing to be. But like, my argument could be made is like, technically speaking, you could argue because they were really heavily like the Incredible Hulk movie with Edward Norton was heavily inspired by
mm,
the Bill Bixby TV series. Like even how
yes,
like
very
they
much.
should like so an argument like not saying that you could, but it could an argument could be made that that is a continuation of the Bill Bixby Hulk. Not saying it is. I before I say
Yeah,
this, but if you
I think it
rewatch,
is in spirit.
yeah, it's a spiritual successor because like you see the
Yeah,
chair and everything, but like the thing about it is like I watched the Bill Bixby Hulk. Yeah, like it's not people following him. He just like gets pissed off and he turns into the Hulk. Right? Am I wrong about
yeah.
this? Yeah. See, and that's what
Well,
I
I mean,
mean.
he is being followed, but yeah, in general, it's like, you know, the Hulk is what causes most of his issues and stuff.
Right.
And yeah, I think like the fact that the 2008 film was sort of a spiritual successor to the 77, 78 series, like that was really kind of its own thing. And then it seemed quite clear, like from once Mark Ruffalo was in it and everything, that they kind of had a different idea of what they wanted to do with the Hulk after that. Because even in Age of Ultron, like, you know, we still have Bruce, like, he is challenged by the Hulk still, but we're starting to see some merging and of like figuring out how he can come back from being Hulk and stuff like that. And then obviously by uh, Thor Ragnarok, it's like immediately, oh, okay, we're starting to, you know, there's still challenges and things like that. You know, he's still, I'm not saying it's easy for him, but it's not like we had another movie where he was on the run. It's not like we had another movie where he was constantly
Right.
angsting the whole time or whatever. Like there were, you know, other factors going on. So I do think it was sort of like a bit muddled, a bit fast forwarded. I just feel like
Right.
in general, I've gotten the impression like that they're not that interested, in exploring that sort of on the
Duality of
run,
man. Yeah.
struggling with powers. They're not
Yeah.
like, they don't really want to have characters struggling with their powers and stuff like that. Not to that extent, because
Right.
it's just not something that they're after, and they want to be generally more lighthearted and stuff. So I don't think,
Yeah.
so they're not obviously going to start doing that now with with She-Hulk, especially when she has someone to mentor her,
Yeah.
and someone who has gone through it all before, and yeah, so I'm
Yeah.
not surprised. I wasn't expecting anything like that.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like I feel like episode. This leads me to episode 2, where episode 2
Mm.
definitely is what we find out. What is Jen's character arc in this? That
Yeah.
is, it is 100%, because episode 2 starts with she loses her job. And then
Mm-hmm.
there's a montage scene where she keeps going to law firm and law firm, and it gets crappier and crappier to the point where there's busted file cabinets at the last one, and they don't want to hire her because she's a
Yeah.
liability, because she is
Yeah.
a super quote unquote superhero. That's her arc. Her, like,
Mm.
the arc isn't controlling the Savage Beast. She isn't Mark Ruffalo. She isn't the Hulk. She is She-Hulk. Her
We don't
arc
want to see
is
the same story again.
no, but her arc is also like Hulk's. It's an arc of identity, but it's a totally different one. It's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of inspiration from this run. It's a reverse. A lot of the Dan Slott She-Hulk run. I haven't read it in ages, but I was rereading bits and pieces of it. It's a reverse arc. It's a reverse arc of that. So like in the Dan Slott run, she always wants to say She-Hulk because she hates Jen. Because she thinks Jen isn't the
Mm.
personality that people want. It's the She-Hulk. Like, that's her
Mm.
personality. When she's Jen, she feels weak. When she's She-Hulk, she feels strong. This is a reverse. It's like, she wants to be
Mm.
Jen, right? And the She-Hulk to her is the inconvenience. And that is the arc of she needs to find who she is. Like, yes, the arc is different. She's not like Savage Hulk and Banner. It's just, she just needs to find who is Jennifer Walters in this world. And so
Yeah, and it's
you've
sort of a mirror of it in a way.
yeah,
I mean, both of them struggling with that, alter ego for different reasons. But
yeah.
yeah, I mean, we wouldn't want to see the exact same thing over again. And like, she does have challenges and struggles. It's
Yeah.
just,
It's
it comes from a
identity.
different place.
Yeah, it's an
Yeah.
identity struggle. And it's not like it's just one of those things where it's just that like, yeah, so like I would rather have it be more an internal conflict than external, right? Like, I don't think it would be as interesting if she's like, I can't stop turning into the Hulk. It's hard. What am I doing? This is more like, it is an insightful, like, who am I? Like, all
Mm.
I've ever wanted to be is a lawyer, but because of these powers, I'm inconvenienced to not be a lawyer because people don't want to take a chance with me. And so, like,
Hmm.
that's the first part of episode 2. And so, like, I feel like if they would have put, like, because they've done it a couple of times, Marvel's done it a couple of times where they put 2 episodes out right away. Like, I feel like if they
Hmm.
put episode 1 and 2 out on the same week, I don't think there would have been this. There'd still be backlash. Like, let's not front. There's no way no one's gonna be like, oh, she's a woman. But like, I
Yeah.
feel like if they put those 2 out there, it would have been less hard. It would have been. I feel like it wouldn't have been like a week of just like shitty like sexist memes. Like
Could have been,
hardcore
yeah,
sex.
because I mean, they would have, yeah, at least had an idea of where it was going. And
Yeah.
the thing is, as well, like, I feel like even if they had made her like the Savage Hulk and made her go through the same, arc as Bruce, I'm sure that there still would have been like the same kind of reaction. It still would have been like, oh well, something along the lines of, haha, she can't control her powers, blah blah blah. Like, I don't even know. I mean, there's always something. There's always something to complain about, and there are legitimate reasons to not like choices that this show makes.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, there's always, when it comes back to, again, like, oh, this show is woke, or it hates men, or it's this and that. Like, we can talk about that more, because I do think there are legitimate criticisms about like how exaggerated some things can be.
Yeah.
But at the same
Oh,
time, like,
episode
it
3,
is
I will
also
get
trying to
into
be
it.
a comedy. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is also a comedy, so and exaggeration can be used for comedic effects. So
And
there are things to talk about, but at the end of the day, I think like they're not talking about those things.
right.
It's not coming from a good faith place.
Because like you said episode 1 was your episode 2 is actually my favorite episode. But this is again
Oh,
probably
interesting.
coming this is coming from I just recently watched The Incredible Hulk. So like there's a strong reasoning for me to like episode 2 because there's a lot of
Yeah.
literal deep cuts in
Yes.
this episode about Incredible
Yes.
Hulk.
We got to talk
It,
about that. We got to talk about the best reference, the best fourth wall break, which
yeah.
was pretty good.
Yeah.
About the fact that yes, go ahead.
So like to just put context, the
Mm.
the B plot is it would be the A plot. Essentially the A plot is
Okay.
like Jennifer Walters is struggling to choose whether or not to be Emil Blonsky's lawyer for his past digressions as the Abomination. And so there's
Yeah.
this
So just
conflict.
further context, he's the one like he was the bad guy from the Incredible Hulk, like 2008. Because in the MCU, like the super soldier serum that Captain America takes is sort of tied
And
in
then
with the
mixed with
Hulk
Hulk
origin.
blood. Yeah.
Plus, yeah, and it was a whole thing. But yeah, and he was sort of the bad guy in that and stuff. So it was really interesting to like see him in this. I love how they've changed and like developed his character. It's very funny.
He's just a hippie dude,
But
and
yeah,
I love it. And it's just one of my like Tim
yeah,
Roth is really funny,
so
and like
good.
I wish people would know that about him. Besides, like, yeah, he's a serious actor. Dude's real funny.
Mm,
Dude's got like
yeah,
chops. But like the best deep cut is that Bruce calls her like no, she calls Bruce, and like it's again
yeah,
like you can feel like they are very close because if you look at his phone, this is just me being like if you look really deeply, it says Fuzzball. It doesn't say Jed. It says a nickname, just a nickname. We
that's
don't know
cute.
why she's called Fuzzball, but that is cute that it's like And he goes, she's like explaining her conflict, and he's like, I'm a totally different person, literally. And then like Jen looks at the camera and just goes, haha. And then we go back into it. And
Yeah,
I'm just like, yo, that's really good. That's good. That's good
yeah,
fourth wall. That's comedy gold to me. Because it's just like,
I love that.
it's
Like
essentially
for
a
those who
throwaway
don't
line.
know, yeah, but like for those who don't know, you'd be like, oh, I don't really, sure, whatever. But then if you know, Edward Norton originally played the Hulk in that movie, and then he was recast, and it's so good. I loved it. I mean, I almost wanted them to have like Mark Ruffalo and Tim Roth on screen together, but maybe that would have been too weird because they did do the recasting. But like that would have been ballsy as hell if they had actually
Yeah.
like shown that.
Well, they
Like,
redesigned the
have the two of them
Abomination.
together.
That's the thing. But they
Yeah,
redesigned
but
the
like,
Abomination.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
that's so
that's true,
crazy,
but it's
dude.
still Tim Roth.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's so fun.
there's just something
Tim
about
Roth
it.
is so charming. Dude. Like, sorry,
Yeah.
that's my gush. Is like, I think Tim Roth is really charming. But then you also see Jen with her family. Again, it is,
Mm.
it's this thing where it's just like, it annoys the bad faith criticism does annoy the shit out of me. Just because it's like, they do show her have character. There is nuance in
Mm.
Jennifer Walters that like, if you weren't like typing like mad sad boy internet comment, episode 3 is going to be one where we got to talk about it because there's there's that scene.
Yes.
But like there's nuance to her. Like, yeah, they changed her origin. Her dad is alive. Like you were saying before, like her dad was a sheriff who got shot and he was killed, right? And so they changed it. Her dad's
Right.
alive. Oh, I've
Oh
from
no,
what
I don't think I said that. I've never read the She-Hulk comics, to be honest.
So, I think my friend told me this. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, I'll put an addendum. But, her dad is dead in the comics, who was a sheriff, and he was killed by a mob boss. And so,
Mhm.
in this one, her dad's alive. So she is close
Mhm.
with her dad. She's close with her family. So again, there's this idea of like, she wants to be an everyday person, but her powers won't let her. And again, I like that. That like again, this is episode 2 to me. Again, it's just sorry, I say again a lot. It's the understanding. This is the arc we are going to go with. Who is Jennifer? Is she Jennifer Walters? Is she She-Hulk? Is she both? Can she be both? obviously by the name of the show, She-Hulk Attorney at Law, she will be. But how do we
Yeah.
get there? And that's the
Yeah.
thing. And I like that because like a lot of it is like she's like, I'm a good lawyer. But I don't want to do superhero law. But I am a good lawyer. And that's the conflict. That I like the conflict. I like conflict. I like drama with my humor.
Yeah.
But like, it's so, to me, it's just, how do you, I mean, this is again, maybe I'm pretending, like, how do you not see that before, like, how are you in an echo chamber where, like, immediately it's a show with a strong female lead where it's superhero, it's like bad, right? It's like, how do you not see that, like, she does struggle and, like, sorry.
No, I get it. I mean, I think, to give a crumb of credit, like, I do understand that. I think there's a tendency with superhero films like this to want to make their female characters too perfect because they've, had a lot of criticism in the past, and because, a lot of those films like pre-MCU haven't performed so well because they haven't, partly because they haven't been that good, but like there's often been this case of like overcorrection, I think, and I think that happened a little with Captain Marvel of, maybe they
100%.
didn't, yeah, they didn't really explore her emotions and like her as a multifaceted person enough, and she was a bit too perfect and blah blah blah. Like there's a lot that could be said about that, and I think like there is, there's a kernel of truth in that sort of criticism, but at the end of the day, like I don't think that She-Hulk is like, I don't think that this really falls into that really. Like,
No.
yeah, it is a softened version of things, 100%. But every single adaptation of all the heroes has been softened in some way. They all have been. And this is obviously going for something like more comedic, more fluffy, more slice of life. Like, that's just sort of the general vibe that it's going for, And I don't think that she is a perfect person. Like, again, we talked about, yes, she does take to her powers sooner, but that's just not the arc that she has. It doesn't mean that she has no arc or no flaws or nothing that's going on. It's just, it's not that particularly.
100, see, and that's 100%. That it's weird to like have people like try to tell you that like that this isn't the right art. Like it's just one of those that's just weird. Sorry, I'm just trying to contextualize the like Mary Sue. Like, I feel like we throw words like Mary Sue a lot nowadays, and it's just weird. It just makes me uncomfortable.
It
like
gets overused. It doesn't get used as often on like male heroes, which there are plenty in the MCU who could easily be called that, and it doesn't. And I don't want to be the one who cries sexism at everything, but it is one of those cases where it does get overused a lot, and we don't know where She-Hulk is going to go, and frankly, we've only had 3 quite short episodes that have had a significant amount of stuff going on, and yet we still have had a feeling for who she is. I would like to get to know her a bit more, but I do think that they have given us a character, and they have given us an arc, and they have shown us, like, okay, this is what she's struggling with, and there's something to take with this. It's much more than, I guess I'm just going to use Captain Marvel as an example. There's much more here than there was there in terms of, conflict already, in a conflict and stuff like that.
Oh, 100%. I just think that episode 2 is my favorite. And then I'm in between for episode 3. For me, when I think of episode...
my least favorite easily.
It is, and it's my least favorite because I think most of those jokes don't land for me. Like, unfortunately, I think they're super cringe. They're not for me.
And that's another word that gets thrown around a lot, but honestly, I agree. And this is what I'm saying. There are legitimate reasons to be like, this is not funny. Like, and I get it. There are a lot of jokes that just
not funny.
Don't work. Yeah.
The only joke that I feel like hit was it's a visual gag and not not the verbal gag, is that Jen takes her hands off the wheels and then turns to the camera and looks at you.
That made me laugh.
But everything, she's still technically driving, and
Yeah.
cars are still passing, and she's still moving, and that to me is such a good visual gag, because it's just like,
I have to say, that made me laugh the most of anything in the episode. I don't think anything else really made me laugh, but like that did make me laugh. That gave me a chuckle because it was just like, oh, okay, like because you don't really know if this is something that's happening diegetically or not. Because like originally when she starts speaking, you know, breaking the fourth wall in the first episode, Bruce acknowledges it, right? So this is probably a bit of an inconsistency in the show, but like he acknowledges it. Either he's the only one who can acknowledge it, or it was just an inconsistency. But like later on,
he does it in episode 2 though too. Technically, like one could argue that like I'm a different person because he says literally, and like you could take that as he is Banner Hulk, or he is Mark Ruffalo, who was formerly Edward Norton. And I think that like
but I guess it's a little, at least that's a bit more ambiguous though.
Yeah.
But it was like an explicit acknowledgement because he looked at her when she turned to break the fourth wall.
Like,
he looked at her like, "What are you doing?"
Or is she like sorry, like
what's going on?
Yeah,
but and then in this one, you know, so there was the inconsistency of that in terms of like, okay, well, she's obviously stepping out of the diegesis and talking to us because the car is still going. But like that was funny, and you know, I don't want. It's like I was saying before. Sometimes continuity can be a stranglehold, you know, and it stops you from telling, you know, all the stories you could tell or all the jokes you could tell. Even though, inconsistency, but it was funny. That was the thing that made me laugh out of that episode.
To be fair, like most fourth wall breaks just annoy the shit out of. I don't like Deadpool. Like I know, I like that's such a terrible sin on the internet to just tell people like I'm just not a fan. I don't think he's funny, and but like no, but I feel like most of the fourth walls have been good. Like that, that A-B story one, not like why.
That was. It wasn't a joke though. That was the issue I had with it. It was literally not a joke. It was literally like, this is a thing that's happening. Cool. All right. Thanks, She-Hulk. Bye.
You know? But like, I feel like if she would have just looked at the camera, be like,
that would have been better. Even like,
if she just looked at the camera and smiled, like I think that would have been way better, right? Like, because
you could have, could have extrapolated what was going on, you know. But the fact that she spelled it out, you're like, that's not really.
Yeah, and see, that's This is the one where it's just like the cringe humor that I would say is most definitely. We were talking about this. This is a criticism. That is to me. I think the client for the Asgard elf most definitely. That is a very weak B plot. Like the A plot is like, real solid.
What is the point? What is the point? Why is it like it? I didn't understand why that was there at all. To be honest, like I get again, it adds.
I mean,
you know,
I guess it adds well, I think it adds world building because like
but that's the thing. That's all really.
Yeah, but like real bad world building. Yeah, it's real bad world building. Like I'm not like. Before that, let me explain. I'm not saying, that's good world building. But, like, there is a nuance that, like, they're never gonna go into this. But, like, they recently, you know, have you seen the Eternals or do you know, like, the mid-credit spoiler?
I know that they've hinted at Blade. Is that what you're referring to?
No, Harry Styles is Eros.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I didn't. I haven't watched a few of the recent MCU entries because you were saying before about how like you've kind of fallen off. I'm slowly but surely catching up. I have started to catch up with a lot of the ones I've missed because
but you've got you're a TV person though. That like it seems like you just
I watch a lot of movies, but yeah, definitely. I'm catching up though. But no, I haven't watched Eternals. I had only just recently watched Ms. Marvel. Haven't watched Loki, so there's just a few that I haven't caught up with. But
you should watch Loki. It's real good. But like what I mean is that like so this is never going to happen, but it did happen in the comics. Is that Eros has the ability to control people's like emotions, right? And so he ends up being in a sexual assault case because of his powers, and Jennifer Walter has to, you know, defend him. And so, like, when I think about that, not that case in general, when I think about like how they handle that, it's just like, yeah, that's like a reasonable question to ask about, like, this person can control emotions. Is this legitimate consent or not? But like,
Yeah.
they're never gonna do that, and this felt like a more watered down version of that because this elf lady was a shapeshifter,
Yeah, 100%.
and so like it added nuance because, like, I liked this because it wasn't like, oh no, there's a man who blew up a fucking building. This is just like, this is a class action lawsuit of like false identity, right? Like, and
Yeah,
I think,
I do wish it could have been deeper though. Like if they were
yeah,
gonna get into it, like they could have talked about like, yeah, wait, actually there is like an element of really dubious consent here because he thought he was
yeah,
sleeping with someone else, and like
exactly, and
like
like,
100% played for
yeah, and like it's played for jokes, as in, like, to be fair, like, yes, there are people who get scammed all the time by people, right? And like that just happens. And most of the time they don't get their
yeah,
money back. But like, I feel like the problem with this episode was just what the bad faith criticisms were talking about. I feel like this was that episode. Like, it wasn't
yeah.
episode
This is
one.
the one
This
that
is
kind of
definitely like, but it's so weird though, right? Because like part of it does handle bad faith criticism really well with like the Twitter threads and things like that. Because like, they're not, when they do it, they do a bunch of them. There's like, I'm not like, don't like She-Hulk, but like, how come they can't have their own name and stuff like that? But then there are other people, like, but it's just her assistant looking through all of this. So there are good tweets and bad tweets going around, right? During this whole thing. And like, it's weird because it's like, wow, they're really contextualizing that, like, yes, she has a presence on the internet and like people will follow her. Like, you know what I mean? Like, people will believe anything. Like, they say they make a deep cut from the Dan Slott run again, because in that comic, She-Hulk did get kicked out of the Avengers, and so when she's walking in, they go, She-Hulk, I heard you got kicked out of the Avengers, and then another news station's like, I'm here today with She-Hulk, who has apparently been kicked out of the Avengers. Like, her public perception is very much just like watered down and like all around, right?
But yeah, what you were saying about like the public perception and stuff, yeah, it definitely does sort of like, it talks about that, and it really hits on a lot of like comments that I've definitely seen people say in real life about the show, but obviously they structure that towards She-Hulk the character. So it does anticipate a lot of that kind of stuff, which is pretty much to be expected. But I guess taking it back to the client and things like that, I wish
Where
that
it
if they
falls
had done
flat
this B storyline.
is that where it falls flat is the B storyline, because it's just that, like, you
Exactly.
don't want this guy to
It should
win.
have
This guy sucks. Like it's like, I get it. Like, I get that, like, you've met him before and he was a dick, but like, there's got to be like an understanding, right? Like, you know what I mean? Where it's just like,
I just wish it could have been more nuanced, because
yeah,
my issue with it is that this guy is so exaggeratedly scummy, which not
yeah.
saying that there aren't guys
Well,
like that
like,
who exist, because there are, but my issue is like you have potentially an interesting setup, what could have even
right.
been its own episode on its own, because you have this case of what could be considered dubious consent, then you have the scamming issue and everything like that, which is sort of a separate thing.
Yeah.
And then you have this like douchey guy, and it's like maybe they could have leaned into more of like, the dubious consent issue. There could have been actually like a back and forth there. I don't think it was necessary to make him so exaggerated, and I think that is the point
He likes
where
Red
like
Bull and he has an
this,
electric
yeah,
car.
but
Sorry.
like this is the point where it becomes a bit like, as you say, sort of playing into those, I guess, bad faith criticisms that were coming out way before this had even come out. Like, people were talking about, like, well, it's this and that and blah, blah, blah. And I guess this is the episode that I think comes closest to that sort of perception, because it could have been probably more clever in the way it had done some things,
Oh,
and like
100%.
more. Yeah, it could have just done more. It could have been deeper. It could have like actually dug into things instead of just like everyone feels kind of like a caricature. And again, that could be good for comedy. That's kind of obviously what they're going for, but at the same time, I think it would have just been more interesting if they had actually like taken it a little more seriously, or at the very least, like you know, given these side characters, more dimension and like explored this issue,
Yeah,
more so. Because otherwise, as it is, it just sort of comes and goes and
yeah.
doesn't really
We're
add
never gonna
anything.
see
It
them
doesn't really
again.
tell us anything about. It doesn't tell us anything about Jen except that she knows this guy who is douchey, and then she like, helps him win or whatever. So yeah, that's it.
And it sucks
It's
because I feel like it
nothing.
also takes away from the good part of it, which is the A plot of the story, right? Like to me,
Mm.
it takes away from it just because it's like this is so funny. Like Wong is an ethereal sorcerer. So like the
Mm.
US American law means nothing to him. Like not even like saying it in a bad way. Like he just doesn't know it.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
And
He's
then
just
they
like,
make
oh yeah.
yeah. But then they make a point like they're like he's like cuz spoiler alert in Shang-Chi Wong frees the abomination so they can have a fist fight because Wong needs to prove he's the sorcerer supreme. I thought that was kind of lame personally because I just like that random fight. I kind of wanted them to be
Mm.
boys because that's like how they were like in Shang-Chi. They're like, next time don't hit so hard. And it's like, oh, they're like friends. That's cool. I like that. And it's like, no, I just took
Yeah,
him
but they
out.
had to kind of pull it back. Yeah.
Yeah, and like that made me sad because I was like, I like that interaction in that. It was a small one, but it was fun. But like,
Mm.
that was like to me that was also like I think that was really cool though. It's just that like, yo, this is happening during the time Shang-Chi was fighting an eldritch being while riding a dragon. This is happening.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's cool.
Yeah.
But like where like cause he does, like it's like Wong doesn't understand the American law. And so it's like, hey, will you show up and do this? And that to me is super interesting, right? That's the interesting part that like we were talking about the nuance of
Mm.
like we wish the B plot did, but that did bring nuance because like he then dipped the fuck out when they're like, hey, did you know it's a federal offense to
Yeah.
like break out of
He's like,
prison?
bye.
Bye. And then
Leave
like
Wong out.
yeah, and so it's such a mixed bag episode, but it makes me want
Mm.
to see the next one. You know what I mean? Like that's the good part of it. Plus they have the Wrecking Crew, and that to me is like they're the best C-list villains because like sorry, I'm gonna go on a brief tangent because I really like the Wrecking Crew and they have really stupid names like Pile Driver. But like, do you know how they got their powers? They
No.
grabbed a crowbar and lightning hit them, and they got magical powers. Like they were able to go toe to toe with Thor. And in this one, they're like, "So we stole some Asgardian power tools," and I'm like, "That's really funny." And they're
Mm.
incompetent, and I like that. They're like the Team Rocket of the MCU, and I like that. We need more of them. We need more incompetent bad guys. Like I just
Yeah.
like that gets me excited, and unfortunately, like it is the weakest of the three, and I feel bad.
It is.
I don't feel
I
bad
think
saying
it's
it,
the
but
one that goes the most for like the cheap humor.
yeah, oh,
It's just the
100%.
everything, yeah, like there are definitely cheap jokes in the other ones, but like I think that's where those are the ones that just don't work the most. Like
It just
the
doesn't
cheap
land.
humor, especially, yeah, and especially in the B plot again, because the lack of nuance, the lack of subtlety. Yeah, they're going for humor, but like you can be funny and have layers to it. There are ways to do that. It doesn't have to be quite so cartoony. I think it's just, yeah, I don't know. I think that's why it just doesn't work for me. It's just that lack of, it doesn't feel like it's really thought out. It's just sort of whatever's the easiest joke, that's the joke, and it can be funny, but at the same time, it can also be like, ugh, cringe, groan, yeah, and it
It
comes
is.
out the
It
most in
is
this one, and
as much
especially in
as
the B plot.
yep. As much as you are right, we have destroyed the word cringe. I really thought it was cringe. Like it
Mm.
is legitimately cringe. But on the bright
Speaking of,
side, Yep.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, no,
No,
go on.
you go ahead.
Speaking of,
Actually, I'll say after.
I
No, no,
just
no. You go ahead because it's to
thank
me.
you.
Yeah.
Like I just think that like I don't think this is a cringe show. I don't think it's a woke show. I want to see where it goes though. Like I mean, like one bad
Nice
episode
rhyme.
isn't going to doesn't sully me because I thought the first two were really good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's, and that's funny. Again, woke has been like overused and sort of has lost all its meaning, but like, I really don't think it is that at all anyway. Like, I
Oh,
feel
I don't
like
think so.
the kind of feminism that it has is really basic and really like, it's like really corporate basic feminism. It's not pushing any boundaries. If we look at what woke is actually supposed to mean, like, it's
Yeah.
not pushing any boundaries, it's not saying anything new, it's not, it's just the same kind of stuff we've seen a million times. This could literally be like the Mary Tyler Moore show from like like this is it's not saying anything fresh, and I'm not saying it has to, but I'm saying that like it's not it isn't woke. It's not pushing anything really. It's just sort of stating things that are pretty widely understood and known and accepted, and even that is still too much, which is a bit wild. But like,
Well,
yeah, I don't
that's
think it's
always wild. Like
doing much.
you know, there not like that's the thing. Like I feel like no matter what, like people could take anything we have just said out of context. You know what I mean? And be like, look at these liberals, look at these snowflakes being mad at other people being mad about. But like, but you know what I mean? Though you are very right.
Yeah,
This is very like if it is feminist, it is very like
it's
by the
so
books
basic.
feminism, right? It's just like
Yeah.
it is like it puts the boys in context to me. You know what I mean? Like this sounds bad.
Yeah, exactly. It's like this is very, girls get it done,
Yeah.
style feminism. And it's like again, I'm not saying it has to be, game
No.
changing. But what I'm saying is like if you're talking about it as if it's like this hyper woke blah blah blah, like it just isn't.
It
It's
really
really
isn't.
and it is unsubtle, and I think it would be more effective if it actually was trying to take some of that a bit more seriously instead of being so cartoony. But like just because it's cartoony and in your face does not make it like does not make it woke. Like you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
just a bit
Also,
stupid.
comedy is
I don't
subjective. We've
really
had
get
this
that. Yeah.
conversation too. Comedy is subjective.
Mm,
So like we said, if you found the douchey man to be haha hilarious, I'm proud of you. But we just didn't like
no.
it's just one of
Yeah.
those things. It's just by the end of it, I don't hate this show, and talking with you about it has helped me contextualize more of that because it's just that like it really was it is weird. It's weird to like be like, man, I wonder what's gonna be mad about this. Like, it didn't happen a lot with Shang-Chi, but it happened enough where like you notice it, and like
Oh yeah. Of
a
course.
lot of like so it's just like I'm hyper aware of this because like I'm a sad man. Like, no, I'm not a sad man. I'm a person on the internet, and I have Twitter.
Mm,
Like, and I don't even
yeah.
mean to go on Twitter all the time, but like sometimes I'll just go and I'll be like, "Oh man, this is a bad hot take. Please don't."
Yeah,
But
this is why I'm like never on Twitter. I have Twitter solely pretty much to like, tweet URLs of my videos as they come up, and
yeah,
that's it. Like I have no interest. I even with my Discord, which I'm glad to have and everything, I find it difficult to be active on social media in general. I
oh, I
like
totally
talking about,
understand.
my movies, TV, and stuff like that. But then there's just so much toxicity, and
Right.
especially when you are anyone other than, and I know people are going to be like, oh, you're saying this and blah, 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 but like, if you're anyone other than like a white straight dude, like you're probably going to have a bit of a rough time. I know people are going to, that's always the thing of like, people think this show hates men because it has these exaggerated stereotypes, and,
I don't think it
yeah, at
does
the end of the
though.
day, they are exaggerated.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like it does. At the end of the day, absolutely. But, it doesn't mean that what it's saying at the very core is untrue, you know?
Right.
And I think that's
And
the
that's
same
the
thing
thing.
here. It's like, yeah. Like, for me, with my experience online, like, obviously, I'm not going to say that, like, there are shitty people from all walks of life, and that is just a fact. But, at the end of the day, there are, generally shared experiences that certain groups have, which tend to come from particular demographics that aren't interested in having representation or, having different kinds of shows be in the MCU, even though they're like, yeah, we want this, that, and the other, we want things to change. But then when it changes, even if it's, it's not the best and it's not perfect, and it's a very flawed show. I think it really is.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like I said this before, it's doing something. And what it's trying to say about feminism and like these little things, it barely has anything to say, let's be honest. But like when it does say something, it is basic, but it's not wrong, beyond
Right.
like behind all of that exaggeration, it does come from a place of truth. It's not, trying to like, it's not man hating at the end of the day. That's not what this show is.
Oh yeah, no.
It could be better
100%.
about how it gets. Yeah, it could get those messages across way better, but that's not what it's not being man hating. Like that's not what it's trying to do. It should be better about it, but at the end of the day, that's just not, that's an unsubtle way to look at it as well. That's like missing the nuance of the conversation.
Oh, 100%. I think we talked
And I think also like,
go on.
it comes from her perspective as well. I was going to say like the show is sort of from her perspective as well. So there's sort of an argument to be made that like this is her perception. Like it's not even necessarily like, it could be that's her perception of how things are, extrapolating from these real experiences, and that's the way that she sees this come across. So maybe that is why everything is so heightened. It can be a stylistic choice. So
100%.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, that doesn't mean you have to like it, but it doesn't mean that they're like trying to attack anybody either. They're just trying to take these like core truths, which again are quite basic. I don't think it's pushing boundaries at all. But like it takes these core truths and just sort of like heightens them for the comedy, and because it's her perception of the world as well.
Too. It's like comedy is hyper aware of itself, like good comedy that it can. But like I don't know, it's be like Ragnarok is a good example of like. But you know what I mean? Ragnarok is a good example of using comedy to like bring emotion and understanding. Ragnarok's a story of loss. This is definitely trying its best. And well, again, we haven't seen everything. And it's a TV show. It's going to be hit or miss.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is, out of the 3 episodes we've had, yes, this is my least favorite. And I still have things to talk about with it, which like, but, I felt like a lot of just wasted potential. The B plot, especially, most of the cringe came from that. Didn't feel like it went anywhere. But at the same time, like there was, the A plot was funny. I enjoyed that, and I liked the first 2 episodes as well. I thought they were, significantly better than the third one, and I feel like it has potential, even if it's, I feel like it's fairly mid, but I'm still enjoying it. I'm still like, I think it has potential. I think it is going somewhere, and yeah, there's going to be highs and lows. So we'll see.
My only gripe, and like, I guess like we can end with like predictions, because I don't know if you've seen the trailer, but I've seen the trailer. I guess like, do you know?
I've seen the trailer. But before we go on though, one more thing to add about episode 3, Megan Thee Stallion.
Okay.
Do we want to talk about?
I do want to talk about this because it also involves like my okay, so I was like, like I love my friends, and like I was probably already having like an off day, and like one of them and it was a joke, he's like, oh, that ending scene's the worst. I'm like, but why do you have to tell me? Like, I don't care. Like, I'm not a fan of Megan Thee Stallion. I thought it was just weird, but like, they brought it up. Like,
I don't know her music either, but like,
the thing about it,
it's worth getting angry about.
No, the thing about it, She-Hulk twerking, whatever, fine. Like, nerds on the internet, I'll either be like, that's stupid, or like, oh, that awakened something in me. Oh. But like, no, sorry.
This bit enough.
This bit about waking. They're wrong. They're too late. No, I'm kidding. But like, no, my favorite. Like, also, I guess my thing about episode 3, the thing that I really, really like is Jen's actually wearing men's suits. I don't know if you noticed that, but she's wearing more like, they're very droopy. She's not wearing like suit pants. She's wearing like legit men's suit, because at the moment that's the only thing that's fitting her, because she becomes a 6'7" lady creature. Kidding, lady. But so Yeah, I mean, Megan Thee Stallion was fine. I think she's annoying from the things that I've
Yeah,
seen personally,
I
but
don't know
like,
anything about her, to be honest, and I don't know her music. That's just, like, I got what they were kind of trying to go for, but I guess for me, it was just that was the part I struggled with the most in this episode, just because, like, I don't think it's worth getting angry about or anything like that, but it was just kind of dumb, and then,
well,
like,
like,
Jen twerking with her at the end, and then she's like,
I
"I'll
mean,
kill for you, Megan Thee Stallion." I'm like, it's fine.
that's
It's just a bit
goofy though,
dumb. It's
but
like,
like
okay,
that's goofy, and
yeah.
I think that line is funny. But like, I guess I think about this in like future tense. It's like if you were to rewatch this show, it does lose its kind of like relevancy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
Like,
something
so
that's gonna age badly, like no matter what.
yeah, and it will age like no matter like not age badly as like whoa this is offensive as in like age badly because
No,
like
no, yeah.
it's just gonna age poorly just because it's just like well this is silly but okay
Well,
like again
exactly.
it's
And
not hurtful
yeah,
it's
even
just
if Megan Thee Stallion remains like super relevant, for decades and decades to come, I'm not saying that she's gonna drop off the face of the earth, but even if she remains super relevant for decades, it's always gonna be a bit odd to like look back and be like, oh, she was in this show. Or
like they
if
could
she,
have
drops off the face of the earth the next day, you'll be like, oh, wait, what? Like, who was
like
that?
I feel like they
It,
could have
it,
used like
yeah,
a different kind of like person like I don't know like a legit Marvel character like I don't know.
yeah, that would
I
have been
guess I
fun.
could have thought about like it's that kind of stuff, but I have no qualms with it. It's okay. I don't hate it.
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
it was used as a reference, so
I
like it was funny that you showed up. Like I thought that was
yeah,
really creative, but like I don't know, like yeah,
I don't hate it. I think
yeah,
it would have been funnier for me personally if it had just been kept to her reaction in the courtroom, because
yeah.
then that's the joke, and then like because there's this whole thing about her, the elf lady impersonating her, and you kind of see clips of her in the phone. You think that's going to be it, and then you see her in the courtroom, and it's like, okay, haha, she's actually there. Like I think that would have like been a stronger ending to it. But then you get them twerking at the end, and it's like she's saying, now that I've got a criticism just about law in general. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but um, generally speaking, lawyers tend to specialize in one particular field, and it doesn't mean
Hmm.
they can't or don't take on other clients, because some lawyers do, have a bunch of different fields in which they work. But it just seems a bit odd that like it's all set up for the joke, and this is 100% a nitpick. That Megan Thee Stallion is now like Jen's new client, and then they're twerking in the office and stuff like that. And Jen is supposed to represent superheroes, so yeah, I don't know. It's just a bit of an odd little thing to set up the
Yeah,
joke, and I just think it would have been cleaner if they had just left it at, oh, she's in the courtroom, haha, done. You
that's
know?
so silly. Ha ha ha. Eh.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's just. Do you have any predictions on where you think that where you yeah, I guess we can end with the predictions of when
Yes. Come back
Daredevil
to
is.
that. Sorry.
Where is Daredevil going to show up, and how relevant will Daredevil be? I hope not very,
Oh God.
but that's personally
Mm.
me. Because
Yeah.
I have this dislike
Yeah.
of hype culture when it comes to things
Hmm.
like this. I think that's part of what ruined No Way Home for me. Really,
Mm.
is that
Hmm.
hype culture. And I think that is one of the things that ruined WandaVision. And
Hmm.
one of my biggest complaints of Doctor Strange to the Multiverse of Madness was the introduction to
Mm.
Professor. I shouldn't. You have you seen it? But
Yes, I have. I
okay,
mean, you've already said Professor, so anyone watching is gonna be like, huh?
yeah, well, it's like
But yeah,
Professor X
yeah.
and Reed Richard, like, but they showed it in the trailers afterwards. But like, it's those kind of things where I feel like they're not a major part, but they show them off, and I feel like I
Mm.
hope Daredevil is like I wouldn't say like a major part, but I hope they go against each other in the day, and the A plot is them in a legal battle, and the B plot is them like
Mm.
teaming up, because that would make a lot more sense.
Yeah,
Because
I'd like that too. I think it should, and I love Daredevil, and I'm excited for the new show and stuff like that. So I say this as a fan, but I don't want him to be a major part of this show, because it is at the end of the day the She-Hulk series,
yeah,
and I don't want it to feel like everyone's like just watching, waiting for Daredevil. And I like the idea of, yeah, them interacting as lawyers first and foremost, you know,
Right.
and
And that should
then
be the important
having,
part.
yeah,
Like, I feel like I'm excited just because, like, I want a Daredevil that, like, is kind of funny. Because I like having like, a Matt Murdock who's a lawyer who's, like, funny and not just gloomy.
yeah, and he could be funny in the original like series as well, but obviously it was mostly, you know, dark, and I don't have a problem with that because that's what the show was. But you know,
Right.
I do think as long as it doesn't feel like he's a completely different character, like you can show him on a good day. You know, it
Oh,
doesn't always have to
100%.
be sad. And yeah, and there are, you know, he has his quips and stuff, and he can be funny. And I think it would be
Yeah.
nice to explore that more like roguish side of him, where he could be a bit more funny and not, you know, hopefully in his own way and not in the sort of. I don't want him to just feel homogenized into like the Marvel quippiness, but like he can be funny, and I think
Yeah.
that could be really, especially when he's like as Matt. You know, he's obviously not really cracking quips as Daredevil. I don't think he should, but like, you know, as his lawyer self, I think he should be allowed to
Yeah, and I think
be a
they
bit
should have
funny.
banter. Like, I want that
Mm.
banter. That's what I'm really
Yeah.
excited for. Is I want a banter between him and Jen, because I think that'd be really interesting. Because it's interesting in the comics. Like, they're lawyers.
Mm.
Like, first, like, I keep it like, this sounds stupid, but first and foremost, this is a lawyer show. And to be honest with you, I'm glad there's not a lot of punchy action going on. It's a lawyer show.
Yeah. Well, that's the
They've
thing.
kept it
You know,
very
it's
subdued.
slice of life. It's fluffy. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like I said before. It's something very different. It's more episodic, and yeah, it is semi-serialized, but it is more episodic. It is more slice of life. It's more like on the streets, you know, showing us a bit more of the world kind of thing. And you know, that hasn't always been successful, a la like the elf lady and stuff. But at the end of the day, like I appreciate that it's doing something different. I really like the more street level kind of side of things, like how Daredevil is. Of course, this is a comedy version of that, but like, you know, more on the
yeah.
ground, dealing with, you know, I mean, she just had a case about Abomination, so yeah, that's a big thing, but at the end of the day, it was a small thing for his parole. It wasn't like a big world changing thing.
It wasn't like the
And I would
Sokovia
have liked,
Accords or
you
anything
know,
like
we talked
that.
about, yeah, and we talked about Midnight the other, like earlier, and I would have also liked that to have been more, you know, street level and stuff. And I would like them to utilize the Disney Plus sort of format and everything to tell more of those smaller kind of stories,
And I
so
feel like
that we
that's what
can
they're
have
trying
more
to do that.
world
That's the
building.
thing that makes
I
me
feel like they're
excited.
shifting towards that. Yeah, they're shifting that way. I don't feel like Hawkeye kind of did that, and I feel like I haven't seen Falcon and the Winter Soldier yet. That's another one on my list, but from what I can tell, that seems again to be a bit more street level, which is cool. Loki isn't. That's more like, you know, timeline stuff, shenanigans. But um, yeah, from what I've heard. But yeah, I like that. It seems like they are getting there. Some things have been more bombastic and had more, you know, higher stakes, and some things have been more street level. And I'd like them to be more like Hawkeye or She-Hulk in the sense of the stakes, like bringing it down, bringing it into the street level, and having it more like
Right.
character focused stuff. Yeah,
And
like
that
they don't
is
have to be that way tonally,
yeah, that's definitely
structurally.
the
Yeah.
good part. Like, I feel like, honestly, that's the best part at the end of Miss Marvel, right? Sorry, it's like,
Mm.
it is, by the end of it, like, yeah, she's like a mystical, like, Jin, but like, she is technically she's a street level hero, and that's what she was doing. She was protecting her neighborhood. She wasn't protecting the world, it
Yeah.
was just her neighborhood. And I
Yeah.
think that,
The way
you're
Spider-Man
right, that
really
is
should be.
important. Yeah. And I think that's really important. And this is definitely like, Spider-Man. Oh man, Spider-Man. R.I.P. Sorry, just
I know,
yeah.
not to bring him up out of nowhere, because you were talking
The,
about No Way Home, and like so much of his stuff in the MCU has been like so
I'm
big and
yeah. He's
bombastic.
fought Thanos already.
Yeah, he's supposed to be your friendly neighborhood
Yeah,
Spider-Man, not friendly cosmic, you know, warrior
yeah,
Spider-Man. But anyway,
yeah. No, you're
that's why I
right.
want to bring it back for things
Yeah,
like that, things like
yeah.
how he should be.
Right, and I think, and you're right. I think Disney Plus is the perfect thing because, like, you know, we have the Echo series coming up too, which is most definitely grounded. There's not like like there might be some mysticism here and there, you know what I mean? But there's
She
no
doesn't
way
even have
it's
any
not gonna.
powers.
Right? No, she's deaf and she knows karate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like,
Like,
you
I
know what
think
I?
in the comics, she's kind of like Taskmaster, right? I think that's the
Yeah.
reason they haven't given her powers, because like they've already done that. But yeah, even like because of that, it's not going to get too big, which is
Yeah.
nice. I want to have more of that like ground level
Personable
stuff, because
story.
save
Yeah.
save the movies, save those big things for the movies, because otherwise, if it's the end of the world every other week, it's a bit like, okay, we've seen this again and
Yeah.
again and again, and that's part of the, how it feels so homogenous and stuff. And so breaking it up and trying different formats, and for all the criticism that I have about the DCEU and what a mess that has been, at the very least, like, a lot of the entries have tried different things.
Yeah,
Like,
no,
that
that's
can be
another
said
thing
for it.
that like they're very experimental. Like that'll
Yeah,
be another podcast of us talking about that
yeah, it's
because
a
I'm
different,
real sad
different
about
conversation.
HBO. But yeah, no.
Yeah.
So like, I guess we'll end it here because I've had a lot of fun talking. It's gonna be
It's
an
been
over
good, yeah.
hour.
A little
Yeah, it's
bit
been good.
chaotic.
No, but like
A
this
bit
is
of
this is
chaotic,
our
a bit chaotic, a bit, yeah, everywhere.
yeah
Tangents, but
yeah.
that's
But
nice.
yeah, it was nice. It was nice. It's just nice having a conversation with you. Like again, we've known each other for like a year now, so it's nice to like
Yeah.
just like vibe out. But like you
Yeah.
can, I will leave our links for our stuff down below, our social media, uh, and our channels. Uh,
Yeah, and then we'll, I guess, get back and talk about more She-Hulk and anything else that kind of
yeah.
comes along. Yeah, anything
So
interesting. It doesn't have to be just Marvel.
yeah. So like, but again, this is just a trial run. But I had a lot of fun. I hope you guys liked listening. Uh, I always just enjoy listening to you because I think you're very insightful, but that's just me. That's not me.
That's
Like,
very sweet. I appreciate that.
so thanks for
Thank you.
listening. Thank you. Thanks for listening, guys.
Thank
Bye.
you.